here we are in 2020, and we have the snatch and a clean and jerk. In Olympic weightlifting, we have powerlifting, which is the squat, the bench press, and the deadlift. So we decided to come up with our own little deal. And just as a historical note, back in 2006 when I was involved with CrossFit, Glassman asked me to come up with what I thought would be a good barbell competition for CrossFit. And he wanted to call it the CrossFit Total. So my idea for that was the squat, the press, the standing press out of the rack, and the deadlift. And we messed around with that for a little while, and CrossFit kind of drifted off in a different direction. And we started calling this thing strength lifting. And we started holding meets. There have been a couple of attempts made at a national Strengthlifting Federation that have gone absolutely nowhere. So the meet that you saw Chase compete in which he did the 405 press at 242, was not what you would call a sanctioned meet, a meet sanctioned by a national governing body that would keep records and, do all the things that a meet sanctioning organization would do, like provide insurance, that sort of thing. That's one of the more useful things that federations do, is provide insurance. Records what is the squat record right now in the APF? Who knows?
Yeah, it's ever changing.
Who knows? How deep was it?
Depends.
Not like that.
Again, ever changing.
Might have been here.
Ever changing.
But it's never there, right? So, yeah, if you don't have, one of the things about a federation is it gets to write a group of rules, and it gets to educate the judges on that group of rules, so that the performances that are turned in each one of the competitions are standardized across all of the meets in that sanctioning body. That's the purpose of the sanction, is so that we can compare the meet that happened last Saturday in Boston to the one that happened the Saturday before that in Dallas, and know who squatted more weight. That's the purpose of the federation and the standardization of the rules. Strengthlifting doesn't have that right now. And if it ever does, it'll be a good thing, because people like to sign up and lift in our meets. How long does it take us to fill up a meet when you announce the day?
10 days.
10 days, it's full.
2 weeks, yeah, depending on what time of year it is.
I think you've filled one up in 3 days.
We have before, for sure, yeah.
And because these things are popular, people would rather do a strength lifting meet than a powerlifting meet. They know the depth is going to be judged. They know you can't get away with an 8 inches above parallel squat. I would rather watch the press than a bench press.
All day, yeah, absolutely.
I don't want to watch 60 bench
People
presses.
laying down.
People laying down and taking the bar out of the rack and all the yelling.
Well, not
and
only that,
and
but like you standardize how to run it, right? Like, what was the load times in between lifts at one point?
We were averaging 35 seconds.
That's fast as fuck.
On the deadlift, probably.
And you go to
we run about
overall, but you got to remember the press goes very fast, right?
I think our average. I measured this one time. Our average across all 3 of the lifts across the whole meet was 1 minute and 4 seconds per attempt.
Another thing I like about our strength lifting meets is we don't have to hear the same 3 Disturbed songs on repeat over and over again, blaring over a loudspeaker.
Yeah, there are several things. Well, let's talk about our rules, all right? The way we run a strength lifting meet is completely different. We don't have music in the venue, unless it's in the warm-up room or on your headphones. You're not there to listen to music. This is supposed to be an athletic competition, and I don't know of a tennis match where Pantera is turned up to 11, during the course of the competition. I've never seen that occur, because we're supposed to be paying attention to what's going on, not rocking out, dude. Right? So we're silent at these meets. We don't have any music on at all. We run the rounds system like powerlifting does, because it expedites the event. An Olympic weightlifting meet drags on and on and on all day because of the weight on the bar system that they use. And what that means is that the lowest weight in the flight, like if there's a lightweight guy in the flight and he's going to open his snatch up with 82 kilos. All right, he opens up with 82 kilos. And then if his next snatch is 84 kilos, and the next guy ahead of him is going to open with 90, the first guy will do his second attempt before the next lifter, because the weight goes up by the weight on the bar, not by the order of the lifting, because the order of lifting in round system is pretty much fixed. And the order of lifting in the Olympic weightlifting system varies every time an attempt is taken. So the guy might go open at 82, he might take his second attempt at 84, and then he might take his third attempt at 89 before the next guy gets to his first attempt at 80 kilos. And every time that happens, you get 2 minutes on the clock between your previous attempt and the one you're going to take on the platform. This eats up a bunch of time. It eats up a hell of a bunch of time. It is not, there's a lot of standing around in an Olympic weightlifting meet, all right? In one of our strengthlifting meets, the first attempts are all laid out on the table in order. Lifter picks his first attempts, and guy at the table runs the cards from lightest weight to heaviest weight. So if the opening squat is 103, we load the bar to 103, call the lifter's name. Lifter walks out, takes the bar out of the rack, takes the first attempt, puts it back in the rack, and the next attempt is loaded, 110. 110 is loaded, guy's name is called, guy comes out, takes 110, takes it out of the rack, squats it, puts it back in the rack, and then the loaders get busy, so that there is a continuous flow of lifting, loading, lifting, loading. And we've gotten this down to the point where across the whole meet,
last beat was 67 seconds average.
1 minute and 7 seconds across all of these. The meet goes fast. Now, if you're there to watch, this is a whole lot more fun than standing around watching an Olympic weightlifting meet, where guys are following themselves for 2 minutes. And, powerlifting meets are run exactly the same way. Some efficient powerlifting meets probably run that quickly. I haven't seen one in a long time. But when we were doing powerlifting meets, we were running it about that same way. The only hang-up in one of our meets is that not only do the squat racks have to be adjusted between lifters, but the press racks have to be adjusted between lifters as well, and this adds some time to the process. Okay? And then the other thing that's quite a bit different about that, well, there's two other things that are quite a bit different. In a strengthlifting meet, our judges don't say anything. They don't participate in the competition. They don't tell Chase when to take the bar out of the rack, when to press it, when to lower it, when to put it back in the rack. They don't talk to him. They don't tell him when to pull the deadlift off the floor or when to set the deadlift back down. They don't tell Chase when to squat, because Chase knows the rules. And Chase is responsible for following the rules. And if Chase doesn't follow the rules, then theoretically, the red lights are turned on. The lifter is responsible for the execution of the lift in the correct sequence that is specified in the technical rules. And the judges don't do anything but judge. All right? I remember several times, and when we were designing this meet protocol a long time ago, in the back of my mind was the thing I had seen at a powerlifting meet one time, is at a big regional meet called the Greater Texas Classic, and the head judge, who was a buddy of mine, was judging a big bench, up toward 600-pound bench press. And he knew better than this, but as I mentioned previously, people are people. And he ended up giving the press signal, which in powerlifting would be the signal that you have paused on the chest long enough, and now you can push the bar up off your chest, because there's supposed to be a pause on the chest. And this guy gave the press signal before the bar got down to the lifter's chest. Jumped the gun quite badly. So in a situation like that, you got three judges. First judge, the head judge, just fucked this up. Now, what do the other two judges do?
I have no idea.
They don't either.
Yep.
That's the problem.
They don't either. That's the problem. Do you judge the lift by the technical rules? Because now you can't. Because the head judge gave the press signal early, and with the press signal being given early, a touch and go would be legal.
Yeah.
If you're going to follow the technical rules that the press begins when the bench press judge, and the head judge says it begins, or do you follow the technical rules and wait for the lifter to press after a pause? Well, this is ridiculous. You've just rendered the whole lift ineligible because you can't judge it now. So we just eliminate that possibility by saying, you, the lifter, execute the press like this. And if you do it correctly, then you get white lights. And if you don't do it correctly, the judges turn on the red lights, theoretically. But judges are humans. People make mistakes. We understand this. But what we have done is remove a big piece of the reason why judges make mistakes. Because, if you look at it like this, why doesn't if the head judge is going to judge the pause and participate in the pause on the bench press, why doesn't the head judge tell you when you're deep enough on the squat? Is there any material difference between those two situations? I don't see one either. So that part of it's different. And then again, our way out. The way out is one of the more important things that we have developed over the years of doing these things. And what did you weigh out?
It was 110.3 or 242.
242 and a little, probably 0.7 or 8.
Yeah.
Something like that. So a little over 242. And did you weigh before you started that day?
Nope.
You didn't even get on the scale.
Nope.
Before you started that day. So the way out is an interesting way to make people behave themselves. All right. What is a weight class in a weight class sport? And what are they for? This should be obvious that the reason we have weight classes is so that we can keep people of roughly even physical capacities to compete together. In other words, the super heavyweight 275 pound, 175 and a half pound guy is not going to compete in the same weight class with a 123 pound guy or the 123 pound female, because of the obvious differences in physical capability between those things. So we've agreed to have weight classes and agree to reward performances based on the limitations imposed by the weight class. Right? Now, I know of a meet that I announced quite some time ago, where the guy, one of the guys in the 165-pound weight class. Now listen carefully, because you're not going to believe this. 165-pound weight class. He weighed in that morning on a 2-hour weigh-in at 165 pounds. Having weighed 209 10 days prior to that.
Jesus.
And then the attempt was going to be, no, that was a 24-hour weigh-in, and the attempt was going to be to gain back as close to 209 as he could, having weighed in at 165. So everybody is in agreement that if you're in the 165-pound weight class, that nobody weighs 165. Right? It's just like a lie we all agree upon. It's like COVID-19 kills 30% of the population of the United States. Same goddamn thing.
Oh, now we're demonetized.
Demonetized us. Excellent. I didn't say anything about the election, though. Maybe they'll let it go.
Yeah.
So,
What's wrong with the election?
edit that out. So you got a guy lifting in the 165-pound weight class, quote unquote, who weighs at least 185 pounds, maybe 190. Well, we don't do that shit because that's wrong and it's stupid, and we understand how the English language works. And when you say weight class, that has a meaning. So what we do in strength lifting is we do a weigh out. In other words, when you conclude your deadlift, the last deadlift you're going to pull, you come to the table, we hand you your expediter card, you hand it to the weigh out steward. Weigh out steward takes you to the scales, and we see what you actually weighed when you pulled your last deadlift. Once again, the responsibility is upon the lifter to fall into the correct weight class. So that's the kind of thing we're doing at our little meets.